There are some truths that remain hidden, not because someone is trying to keep them secret, but because love itself is too humble to demand attention. Imagine discovering that the quietest person in the room had been carrying the deepest emotions all along, and the only reason those feelings came to light was because someone unknowingly revealed a story that was never meant to be shared. That is exactly what has happened to your soulmate. They never expected to hear about the depth of your heart. They were not searching for proof, asking questions, or looking back at the past. Yet through one completely unexpected conversation, someone casually mentioned something you once said, a sacrifice you quietly made, or a moment where your true feelings became impossible to hide. In that instant, your soulmate stood completely still because the picture they had carried of your love was suddenly shattered. As the old saying goes, the deepest rivers make the least noise. Your soulmate has just discovered that your heart was one of those quiet rivers, flowing with far more love than they ever imagined. Imagine walking through an art gallery and unknowingly passing by a priceless masterpiece because its frame appeared simple. Then someone tells you the incredible story behind the painting, and suddenly you return to it with completely different eyes. The artwork never changed, but your understanding of it transformed everything. That is what is happening now. Your soulmate is returning to every memory they shared with you, but this time they are carrying a truth they never had before. They realize your kindness was never casual, your patience was never ordinary. Your willingness to remain present, even during difficult seasons, was never simply part of your personality. It was love, quietly expressing itself in ways that never demanded applause. While others might have spoken loudly about what they felt, your heart chose consistency over attention, loyalty over recognition, and quiet devotion over dramatic promises. The accidental revelation has shown them that your feelings were never measured by what you said. They were measured by everything you silently did. What overwhelms them most is not discovering that you loved them deeply. It is discovering how little you expected in return. They begin remembering moments when you celebrated their happiness, even when your own heart carried unanswered questions. They remember how you supported them without asking for reassurance, how you respected their choices even when they were difficult for you, and how you continued wishing them well without trying to make them feel guilty for your sacrifices. Looking back now, they understand that your love was never trying to control them. It was quietly hoping for their happiness, even if that meant carrying your own emotions in silence. As another timeless reminder says, the purest love is often the love that asks for nothing except the chance to remain genuine. Those words suddenly explain every quiet decision you made, and your soulmate can no longer ignore the extraordinary sincerity that was hidden beneath your calm exterior. Now every memory begins changing before their eyes. They remember conversations that seemed ordinary, but now feel filled with emotions they completely overlooked. They remember thoughtful gestures they accepted without realizing how much they meant to you. They remember moments when you smiled despite carrying feelings you never placed upon their shoulders. The accidental revelation has become more than a surprising discovery. It has become a key unlocking an entirely new understanding of your heart. Your soulmate is no longer asking whether your feelings were real. That question has already been answered. The only question echoing through their mind now is far more emotional. If your love was this deep without ever asking to be recognized, then how many beautiful expressions of your heart did they unknowingly walk past without ever seeing? That realization has left them emotionally overwhelmed, and it is only the beginning of a journey that will forever change the way they understand your connection. As the unexpected revelation settles into your soulmate's heart, they find themselves returning to moments they once considered ordinary, only to realize they were quietly witnessing extraordinary expressions of love without ever recognizing them. They begin asking themselves questions they never thought to ask before. Why were you always so patient when circumstances became difficult? Why did you never demand explanations, even when silence must have been painful for you? Why did you seem more concerned about their happiness than about receiving reassurance for your own heart? At the time, they believed those qualities were simply part of your personality. Now they understand those moments were your heart speaking in the only language it truly trusted, actions instead of words. As the old saying goes, love that is genuine does not always ask to be seen. It simply continues giving. Those words now echo through your soulmate's thoughts because they finally realize your feelings were never hidden behind dramatic confessions. They were quietly woven into everything you consistently chose to do. Imagine hearing the melody of a familiar song for years without ever paying attention to its lyrics. Then one day, someone points out the meaning behind the words, and suddenly every note carries an emotion you had completely missed before. That is exactly what your soulmate is experiencing. The accidental revelation did not create new memories. It simply gave new meaning to memories that had always been there. They remember the way you listened when they spoke, not because you had to, but because you genuinely cared. They remember how you noticed small changes in their mood before anyone else did. They remember your thoughtful messages, your quiet encouragement during difficult times, and the way you celebrated their successes without ever making yourself the center of attention. Looking back now, they realize none of those moments were random acts of kindness. They were quiet expressions of a heart that loved deeply, but never wanted to place emotional pressure on someone it cared about. The more they reflect, the more another painful truth begins revealing itself. They realize they spent so much time waiting for obvious signs of affection that they completely overlooked the quiet consistency standing in front of them every single day. They expected grand declarations, dramatic conversations, or unmistakable confessions. Instead, your love appeared through patience. It appeared through respect. It appeared through loyalty that remained steady even when circumstances became uncertain. Because your feelings arrived so gently, they mistook them for ordinary kindness. Today they understand that the strongest love often whispers where weaker emotions feel the need to shout. As another timeless reminder says, the deepest hearts rarely compete for attention because their love is already busy becoming action. Those words now explain everything they once failed to understand about you. Imagine watching someone carefully tend a garden every morning before the rest of the world wakes up. They water each flower, remove every weed, and patiently care for every growing plant, without expecting applause from anyone passing by. Months later, the garden blooms with breathtaking beauty, and people admire the flowers without ever realizing how much quiet dedication created them. Your heart was much like that garden. Every thoughtful gesture, every act of patience, every moment you chose understanding instead of frustration became another flower planted in your connection. You never demanded recognition for those efforts because your purpose was never to impress anyone. You simply wanted the connection to grow naturally. Your soulmate now realizes they admired the beauty of your presence without ever understanding the quiet devotion that made it possible. As these realizations continue unfolding, they begin remembering specific moments that now carry completely different meanings. They remember times when you stepped back instead of creating unnecessary conflict. They remember how you respected their boundaries, even when doing so must have been incredibly difficult for your own heart. They remember how you celebrated milestones in their life without expecting your own feelings to become part of the conversation. At the time, they interpreted your restraint as emotional uncertainty. Today, they understand it was one of the greatest expressions of love they have ever witnessed. You cared enough to let them grow without trying to control their journey. You loved enough to remain kind even when your own emotions went unspoken. Very few people possess that kind of emotional maturity, and your soulmate is only beginning to grasp how extraordinary it truly was. Another realization now touches them more deeply than anything else. They understand that you never wanted your feelings to become a burden. You never wanted them to feel obligated, pressured, or responsible for emotions they were not yet ready to understand. Rather than placing the weight of your heart upon their shoulders, you quietly carried it yourself. That decision required remarkable courage, because silent love is often far heavier than spoken love. As the old saying reminds us, the strongest hearts are not those that demand to be understood, but those that continue loving with grace even while being misunderstood. Your soulmate finally understands that you lived those words every single day. Imagine standing beside the ocean at sunrise. The waves never announce their arrival with pride. They simply continue reaching the shore again and again with quiet faithfulness, whether anyone notices them or not. That is how your love now appears in your soulmate's memories. It was steady. It was dependable. It was always there, even during seasons when they failed to recognize its depth. They realize your heart never needed dramatic moments to prove itself because your consistency quietly accomplished what words alone never could. Every smile you offered despite uncertainty, every encouraging message during difficult days, every thoughtful act that expected nothing in return has now become undeniable evidence of feelings far deeper than they ever imagined. Now your soulmate can no longer separate your actions from your heart. Every memory has become a silent confession they somehow missed the first time. They finally understand that your calmness was never emotional distance, your patience was never hesitation, and your quiet presence was never ordinary friendship. It was love expressed through respect, loyalty, and unwavering care. The accidental revelation did not create these truths. It simply opened their eyes to what had always existed beneath the surface. And as they continue piecing together every forgotten moment, they begin realizing something even more overwhelming. If so much love was revealed through the things you quietly did, then perhaps the deepest parts of your heart were speaking all along. They simply were not ready to hear the language your soul had been using. The accidental revelation continues echoing through your soulmate's heart long after the conversation has ended. At first, they believed they had simply learned one surprising fact about your feelings. But as the hours pass, they begin realizing that what they uncovered was far greater than a single secret. It was the missing piece that suddenly makes every chapter of your connection fit together. Memories they once considered ordinary now return with astonishing clarity, carrying emotions they completely overlooked the first time. A smile that once seemed casual now feels like quiet reassurance. A goodbye they barely remembered now feels heavy with unspoken love. Even the smallest moments begin shining with a meaning they never imagined. As the old saying goes, the heart remembers what the mind failed to understand. Your soulmate is now experiencing exactly that. Their heart is revisiting every forgotten moment, finally recognizing the silent devotion that had been present all along. Imagine watching a beautiful movie with the sound turned off. You see every scene, every expression, and every movement, but you miss the dialogue that gives the story its true meaning. Then one day the sound is restored, and suddenly every scene becomes far more emotional than before. That is what this revelation has done. Your soulmate is watching the story of your connection again, but this time they can finally hear the language your heart had been speaking all along. They remember how you always noticed when something was wrong, even before they said a word. They remember how your kindness never depended on your mood or your circumstances. They remember moments when you quietly stepped aside so they could have opportunities that meant more to them than to you. At the time, they believed those choices were simply acts of generosity. Today, they understand they were acts of love that never asked for recognition. The deeper they travel into these memories, the more emotionally overwhelmed they become. They realize they spent so much time searching for dramatic evidence of your feelings that they completely missed the countless quiet sacrifices standing directly in front of them. They expected your heart to reveal itself through extraordinary moments, but instead, it revealed itself through extraordinary consistency. You showed up when it mattered. You remained patient when uncertainty surrounded both of you. You offered encouragement without expecting praise. You respected their pace, even when your own heart longed for certainty. As another timeless reminder says, the strongest love is often hidden inside the smallest acts, repeated with unwavering sincerity. Those words now describe your entire journey together, and your soulmate cannot stop wondering how they failed to recognize something so beautiful while it was happening. Imagine walking through a forest during autumn without realizing that every falling leaf is quietly preparing the trees for a stronger spring. At first, the falling leaves appear like endings. Only later do you understand they were part of new growth all along. That is how your soulmate now sees every silent sacrifice you made. Moments they once interpreted as distance were actually respect. Times when they believed you had given up were often moments when you were choosing patience over pressure. The days you quietly stepped back were not signs that your feelings had faded. They were signs that your love valued their freedom more than your own certainty. Looking back, they realize your heart never tried to possess them. It simply wanted what was best for them, even when that meant carrying your own emotions without complaint. Another realization begins touching them even more deeply. They remember occasions when friends or family casually mentioned how thoughtful you were, how often you spoke well of them, or how genuinely happy you seemed whenever something good happened in their life. At the time, those comments barely captured their attention. Now, after hearing the unexpected truth, those same words feel like pieces of a puzzle finally coming together. They realize your feelings were never hidden because you were ashamed of them. They remained quiet because you believed authentic love should never become a burden. You wanted your actions to speak naturally, instead of asking anyone to respond before they were ready. As the old saying reminds us, love reaches its highest form when it gives freely, without demanding. Proof in return, your soulmate finally understands that this was exactly the kind of love your heart quietly carried. Imagine discovering an old journal filled with handwritten entries from someone who never intended for anyone else to read them. Every page reveals honesty untouched by performance or expectation. There are no dramatic speeches, no attempts to impress anyone, only genuine emotions written exactly as they were felt. That is how your soulmate now experiences your memories. Every thoughtful gesture feels like another page from the journal of your heart. Every sacrifice becomes another sentence, revealing feelings you never placed upon their shoulders. Every quiet smile becomes another confession they somehow missed while living through those moments. They realize your love never depended on being noticed. It simply existed because that was the most natural expression of who you were. Now gratitude begins mixing with heartbreak in a way they never expected. They feel grateful because they have finally discovered the truth about your heart. Yet they also feel heartbroken because they understand how much love quietly surrounded them without their awareness. They wonder how many opportunities passed unnoticed because they were looking for louder signs while your soul continued speaking softly. They begin wishing they had paid closer attention to the little moments, the thoughtful questions, the gentle encouragement, the peaceful conversations, the unwavering loyalty that remained unchanged regardless of circumstances. Those memories no longer feel ordinary. They have become emotional confessions hidden inside everyday life. As they sit with everything they have learned, one final understanding begins awakening within them. This accidental revelation did not simply expose the depth of your feelings, it awakened the depth of their own awareness. They are beginning to understand your journey from your perspective instead of their own. They are beginning to feel the patience you carried, the hope you quietly protected, and the silent prayers your heart never spoke aloud. For the first time, empathy has replaced assumption, and understanding has replaced uncertainty. They now realize that your love was never waiting to be admired. It was simply waiting to be understood. And that realization is opening the door to something even more profound, because they are about to discover that once a heart truly recognizes the depth of genuine love, It can never again return to seeing that connection the way it once did. Everything your soulmate has uncovered has led them to one extraordinary realization. Your love was never hidden because you were afraid to express it. It remained quiet because it was never trying to demand a place in their life. They finally understand that there is a profound difference between love that seeks attention and love that simply chooses to remain faithful. For so long, they believed they had missed a confession. Now they realized they had actually been surrounded by thousands of quiet confessions hidden inside everyday moments. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every sacrifice made without expectation, every gentle smile during uncertain times was your heart speaking in a language they had not yet learned to understand. As the old saying goes, the loudest hearts are not always the deepest. Often the deepest hearts speak in whispers. Those words now echo through your soulmate's soul because they finally recognize that your love never needed dramatic promises to prove itself. It had already been revealing itself through the consistency of your character every single day. Imagine standing beside the ocean at dawn. During the night, the tide quietly rises without making an announcement. It does not demand that anyone watch it. It simply continues moving with quiet certainty until the shoreline has completely changed. That is exactly how your love has been. It never arrived with noise or urgency. Instead, it slowly surrounded every part of your connection through steady care, unwavering respect, and genuine devotion. Your soulmate now understands that while they were waiting for one unforgettable moment, your heart had been creating thousands of unforgettable moments so gently that they blended into ordinary life. Looking back, they realize your greatest expressions of love were never found in extraordinary events. They were found in the ordinary days when you continued choosing kindness, understanding, and loyalty without asking for recognition. As this understanding settles deeper into their heart, another realization becomes impossible to ignore. The accidental revelation did not create your feelings. It simply removed the veil that prevented them from seeing what had always been there. They remember how naturally you celebrated their victories, even during seasons when your own heart remained uncertain. They remember how you listened carefully whenever they spoke, never rushing the conversation back toward yourself. They remember how your concern for their happiness always seemed more important to you than receiving reassurance for your own emotions. Looking back now, they understand that every one of those moments carried a message. Your love was quietly saying, "Your peace matters to me. Your happiness matters to me. Your journey matters to me." As another timeless reminder says, real love is revealed not by what it asks for, but by what it willingly gives. Your soulmate finally understands that your actions had been speaking this truth all along. Imagine discovering that someone had been lighting a candle for you every evening, asking for nothing in return, never expecting you to know, and simply hoping that wherever you were, you would find peace. That quiet devotion would feel far more meaningful than any public declaration because it was never performed for applause. That is how your soulmate now sees your heart. They realize your love was never trying to impress them. It was simply trying to protect something beautiful from becoming selfish. You understood that genuine feelings lose their purity when they become attempts to control another person's choices. Instead of asking them to carry your emotions before they were ready, you quietly carried those emotions yourself. That realization overwhelms them because they finally understand how much emotional strength it took to love with such patience. The more they reflect, the more they recognize that time itself has become part of your story. What once felt like distance now feels like preparation. What once felt like silence now feels like wisdom. Even the unanswered questions no longer seem painful in the same way because they understand that every season served a purpose. They were growing into the person capable of recognizing the kind of love you had always been offering. As the old saying reminds us, the heart receives only what it has become ready to understand. Those words now explain why this revelation happened now instead of years ago. Had they discovered the truth earlier, they might not have fully appreciated its meaning. Today, experience has softened them. Life has humbled them. Wisdom has opened their eyes in ways they never expected. Because of that growth, they are finally able to receive the quiet truth your heart had been expressing from the beginning. Imagine climbing a mountain before sunrise. During the long ascent, the landscape appears dark and uncertain. You question every step because you cannot yet see the beauty waiting above. But the moment the sun rises, the entire horizon is transformed. You suddenly understand why every difficult step mattered. Your soulmate now feels as though they have reached that sunrise. Every misunderstanding, every unanswered question, every season of uncertainty has led them to this breathtaking moment of clarity. They no longer see your connection as a collection of random memories. They see it as a journey where every quiet act of love was preparing them to recognize something truly rare. They realize your devotion never disappeared during the silence. It simply remained steady beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to be seen. Now, gratitude replaces regret more than ever before. While they still wish they had recognized your feelings sooner, they also understand that some lessons cannot be rushed. Some truths become meaningful only after life has taught the heart how to value them. They no longer measure your love by what was never spoken. They measure it by everything that was consistently lived. Your patience became your confession. Your loyalty became your promise. Your kindness became your declaration. Your unwavering respect became the greatest evidence of all. The accidental revelation merely gave words to what your life had already proven. So if this message has found you today, perhaps it carries a reminder meant for your own heart as well. Never believe that love is measured only by dramatic moments or unforgettable speeches. Sometimes the deepest love quietly exists inside everyday choices, unnoticed, until wisdom finally teaches another heart how to see them. Your soulmate now understands that your feelings were never truly hidden. They were simply expressed through a language only maturity could fully translate. And perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. Authentic soulmate connections are not built upon loud promises, but upon quiet consistency, patient devotion, and a love that remains genuine, whether it is recognized immediately or only after time, has revealed what was always there. When two souls finally reach that place of understanding, even one unexpected revelation can illuminate an entire lifetime of silent love. Proving that what is real never needs to shout, it only needs the right heart to finally recognize its voice.